Hello? Oh, hey man. It's been a while, yeah. Yeah, I already kind of agree with majority of what other reviewers say, so I feel like there's not much for me to add on to. And the fact that they went with the 5-in-1, it's basically one step closer to the Champion Edition. Yeah, last month when I went to the beach, I brought the Air65 with me. You're still gonna feel when the wind hits it, but I wouldn't say it was unflyable. I was actually kind of enjoying it in the open space, so it's still kind of fun to fly. One of them is the peak screws. You can also change the canopy for something better if you want to. And I think Chris Rosser has 2 videos on making the Air65 even better. Like, I think it was the ESC configurations and the PID tune. Yeah, I've done that with my race whoop and it flies amazing. And that's it. That's the review. The Air65 is undoubtedly one of the best tiny whoop binding flies you can get in the market right now. At its price point, it's pretty hard to beat, it's really good on its stock PID settings and it tracks really nicely, and there are still lots of things you can do to it to make it fly even better. Regardless if you're going for the freestyle version or the racing version, I don't think you'd go wrong with getting an Air65. And that's it. That's all we have for today's video on the Air65 by Beta FPV. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Wait. Okay. This is just a joke. Okay, there's still more to this video than just that. All jokes aside, I genuinely think the Air65 deserves all the praise that it has gotten over the past few months. But there are some things that I feel like reviewers don't actually mention as much as they needed to. Just for this video, for those of you who are curious about how to repair an Air65 or generally tiny whoops as a whole, I'm going to give a little bit more insights on the repairability side of things, as I think that's something that isn't addressed as often as I think it needs to be. Okay, first things first, let's do our usual thing. Let's go over what you get in the box and the specs of the Air65. You get the usual spare screws, a spare set of Gemfan 31mm props, which again, I wish we had more, but one set is good enough. Your trusty dongle, which I somehow use for things not related to FPV, which is honestly a good thing. A spare updated canopy, which has the cutouts for your UFL antenna so it doesn't get broken off. And lastly, a support card if you need any help. Though the representative that I talked to did say that this is just limited to their products and not your personal issues that you need help with. Right? It's crazy. Oh, the camera? Yeah, it's working now. Yeah, thank you. Anyways, going back. Hello? Hello? What the? In terms of specs, we are using Beta FPV's 0702 SE version 2 motors, and these are 27,000 kV motors for the racing version. I believe the freestyle one has 23,000 kV for slightly longer flight time. I am getting around 2 minutes and 30 seconds up to 3 minutes, depending on how hard I'm flying, and I'm usually just doing casual freestyle. Beta FPV does show some information on the difference between the version 1 and the version 2 of their 0702 SE motors, but personally, I don't think it's too relevant. If you're a beginner, just know that these perform pretty well, but there are definitely some better options out there if you plan to upgrade and go that route. Paired with these motors are Gemfan 1219S tri-blade props, and it's using the Beta FPV's Air65 frame and light canopy. Personally, I like the Air65 frame, but if you live somewhere cold, expect the plastic to be a little bit more brittle, and that spares are inevitable. On here, we have the CO3 camera, which is personally my favorite camera for tiny whoops. It's lightweight, good color, and I like the FOV of it. I've also noticed that the most recent CO3s come with a black labeled piece, which seem to help prevent those thin wires from breaking off the pads. Additionally, it also prevents those artifacting of the PCB whenever you fly this in some specific lighting conditions. Lastly, the heart of the Air65 and the Air75 is the Air G4 5-in-1 all-in-one. The previous version used a 4-in-1 with an external receiver, which some people liked, but I like the convenience and the lower weight of the 5-in-1. Everything else seems to be exactly the same, so G4 processor, ICM gyro, 5A ESCs, and 16 megabytes of storage for your black box. Additionally, the VTX on the Air G4 is exactly the same. It's rated from 25 up to 400 milliwatts of output power. For our indoor flights, our Air65 actually shines here the most. It's agile, it's low weight, and the control definitely makes it really fun to fly even in an enclosed place. From a racing point of view, the Air65 tracks pretty well in straight paths, and turning on a dime is relatively easy to do, which is actually a result on the motor prop combo, the low weight, and the PID tune that Beta FPV has for this.
She flies great, I'm not gonna lie. She is as good as the Champion Edition. Honestly, it might be better. Let's go! I need a haircut, my guy.
Quick tangent, but I can safely say that the throttle control on the Air65 ranks around second place among the Beta FPV tinywhoops that I've tried. I think the top spot will always be the analog variant of the Meteor 75 Pro, and a close third is the Air 75. I usually try to do orbits or gaps in select places around my house, and I didn't really have too much of a hard time doing those with the Air 65. Again, not the same level as the 75 Pro, but very close.
Ooh, I did not change any throttle. I did not change anything in throttle. And I think it's there. A throttle just feels really good.
I do want to say that at its stock camera angle that it comes in, it does move fairly quickly, and I can see some people struggling with that, especially when flying indoors.
Nice. Come on! Ah, that's so lame.
I do have some recommendation on how to lower the camera angle. I don't know where this originated from, but I've seen people use heat shrink and some adhesive like T6000 to extend the back segment to reach a lower camera angle. Now going to our outdoor flights, despite being the racing variant of the Air65, nothing is stopping you from doing freestyle with it, and I can gladly say that it's extremely rewarding, especially when flying outdoors.
Smooth. For hang time, oh my goodness. Woo! Other way. Whoa! Dodged it. Woo!
I actually recommend flying it outside first. I think you'd have a fun time flying a 65 outside, especially the Air65. I flew this on the beach with like low to medium winds, and it flew perfectly fine. Sure, you're going to feel it kind of shake every now and then when there's wind, especially like the really strong ones. But in no way or form was it unflyable or uncontrollable. I think you'd still have a fun time, and I think I actually would recommend to you guys to fly it outdoors first before flying it indoors. Now let's go over some expectations on the durability of the Air65, and I'm just gonna bring out the Air65 Champion Edition here since I've used this a lot more, and essentially the difference is very small. You just have a different set of motors. Everything else is exactly the same. First and foremost, the most damage I can physically see are on the plastic components such as the frame and the propellers. These are things that generally get broken and replaced first, which is why I'll always recommend to you guys to always get the spare props and frames alongside the drone if you can, and especially if you live in cold or dry places. Your motors are probably going to be the next thing that needs to be replaced, and you'll know they're damaged either when they are visibly damaged, they're causing too many vibrations, or they just decided they don't want to spin anymore. One thing I see fairly common in Reddit is motor stuttering. Butterfly FPV actually talks about this in one of his videos, which you should definitely check out in the description down below. But essentially, if your motor starts stuttering, it's most likely a motor wire that's broken. Sometimes it's a wire that's just barely holding on, and sometimes it's an internal break inside the thin wire that's preventing the motor to function. So if you're having that issue where one or two motors look like they want to spin but struggle the first few times you armed it, I'd resolder some new wires on before I start panicking. With regards to the camera, I haven't actually had this specific problem, but the most common issue with the CO3 is actually the IR filter coming loose inside of the lens housing. You can definitely still fly with a broken infrared lens, but it's going to have some weird colors every time you fly. Additionally, you can opt to open up the lens and try to put the filter back on. Just know that there are some risks involved there that may or may not be worth the hassle. Lastly, the Air G4 is my favorite all-in-one, but it is without its own set of flaws. The biggest is its VTX and the ESCs on board. I haven't actually broken my VTX on any of my Air G4s, but that's mostly because I fly at the lower output powers, which is around 25 to 100 milliwatts of output. I think the worst case scenario, which is also coincidentally one of the common scenarios for these tinywhoops, is being stuck in a place that you can't turtle mode or easily find, and having to look for your tinywhoop for like 3 to 5 minutes while your output power is at 400 milliwatts. Additionally, I haven't had any ESCs break on me for these drones, the Champion Edition or the Standard Racing Edition, or even on the other Air G4s that I've had so far. But I've noticed many times online, the usual culprit is using turtle mode when the motors are stuck and can't spin. So these are situations where either there's gravel or sand inside of the motors and it can't spin, or perhaps the motor is just stuck because there's a pebble or something limiting it from spinning. Now, this last section is really just some things that I want to mention related to repairing whoops, as I know this is something that is very intimidating to people, especially beginners. First things first, always twist your motor wires. Not so tight that it feels like it's going to rip off, but just enough to form one cohesive strand like this. It will spread the stress instead of focusing it on one wire, which will prevent that isolated wire from breaking. Second, and I've mentioned this earlier, if your motors are stuttering, there's a very high probability that it's not the ESC, it's not the motor, it's actually the wires. So when in doubt, replace those motor wires first when you see your motor stuttering. Third tip, I've heard people destroying their all-in-ones in a hard crash, forcing the camera into the all-in-one. Though it's more related to TPU canopies, adding some foam between the camera and the all-in-one really goes a long way. Fourth tip, please, if you want to preserve the longevity of your VTX, as I've mentioned earlier, this is probably the first thing to break if you use it way too often, but always use the output power at its lowest that you can tolerate. High output power means a lot of excessive heat, which this thin 2.9 gram PCB definitely cannot handle for long periods of time. Number 5, another benefit of keeping your output power low is having longer flight times. If you don't really plan to fly that far and want more flight time, instead of going to a bigger battery, you can easily just go to 25 milliwatts and you'll easily get a few more seconds of flight time. 4 minutes of flight there, 3.54, around that. And this is at 25 milliwatts. Okay, we got 3 minutes 22 on there, 3 minutes and 22. We are currently at 3.51 volts. We actually went a bit further. And yeah, we're at R1 400. Interesting, we lost more than half of a minute just by flying with 400 milliwatts of output power. Number 6, this is just a suggestion, not really like a full recommendation, but it's always good to add a small dab of glue on your UFL connector, and this will essentially help keep it in place even in the harshest of crashes. I was literally on my way to apply T7000 on the USB port, and then I realized it was gone. Every gram counts, including the connector. That's a feature right there. Number 7, if you don't plan to fly far away, I recommend making a custom linear antenna, which not only is a nice little segue to learn about antennas, which learning is always good, but it also has the advantage of being lighter and harder to break. Number 8, regards to ELRS receivers, I firmly believe that it's best to set a binding phrase. Don't worry if the Wi-Fi is slow. It usually takes a few tries to get a solid connection to the ELRS receiver on your device. But after that, and you get the web page to open up and save your binding phrase, you should be golden. Additionally, you may need to turn off your model match in your Lua script if you're still having problems. Number 9, with regards to mods, Chris Rosser actually has 2 videos that you may want to check out. One is about ESC settings, and the other one is his review on the Air65, where he shows some changes to the PID and filters. I don't recommend doing this immediately since the Air65 flies pretty good already out of the box, but it's still something that you can do down the line. Lastly, number 10, and probably the most helpful advice that I can ever give to someone working with tinywhoops. If you have particles inside of your motor, such as sand or gravel, and it's preventing it from rotating, if you plan to disassemble your motor, please do it inside of a plastic bag.
Look how tiny that C-clip is. Like, I'm going to lose that the moment I breathe.
And perhaps you don't know what I'm trying to say here, but please. Shh. That is gone. Your C-clip is simultaneously your number 1 friend and the worst enemy, okay? This is your choice. You have the chance to decide if you want to play hide and seek for the next 2 hours with something that is so tiny it could blend with any surface in your room, okay? Hold up, I was gonna do this for a bit and just like do it jokingly. No. That is gone. It flew away this way, and then I heard it bounce, and it's just like, trust me when I say this, disassemble it in a plastic bag. The moment you disassemble your motor and you hear a little click, I mean, it's silver at least, right? So I could like see the reflection. So that's all we have for today's seemingly short review on the Air65. It's really just a small update from the original that used the 4-in-1, but it performs just as good or perhaps even slightly better than the original, which was already a pretty solid bind flight to begin with. Personally, I think everyone should have at least one analog tinywhoop. It's fun to fly, it has low risk, low repair costs, and it's probably the safest thing to fly around. So if you plan to get yourself a tinywhoop, I highly recommend the Air65. You don't have to do this, but there will be an affiliate link down in the description that you can use to get the Air65 or honestly anything from the Beta FPV shop like the spares that I mentioned. And as always, thank you for watching my review video on Beta FPV's Air65 and also for making it to the true ending of this video. I greatly appreciate all you guys' support, and I really wouldn't be here without you guys. I still don't know what the next video will be about since I'm juggling several things at once right now, but I do hope to see you guys on the next one. I hope you have a great day and a great week ahead. Thank you for watching.
So I have this issue. It's just the second day of this trip, and I accidentally broke off my goggle cable. And the thing is, I did not bring my soldering iron. So let's just hope that this tape holds up while I fly on the beach.
Oh well.